back with another episode of the Love Marriage Fantasy Podcast. I am your co-host, Anton Leonard Claiborne. I am your certified marriage facilitator. I am your relationship intimacy advisor and your global relationship strategist. Next to me is this beautiful woman here.
I am.
I gave you the setup. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I am Coach Star Claiborne. I am your love, life, and confidence coach. I am your global relationship strategist, author, and the co-founder of the Claiborne International Coaching Group, as well as your pure romance consultant. Today on this podcast, we will be talking about learning to love and looking for a fantasy. What is that about? And with us today, we have Miss Joanne Saunders. Miss Joanne, can you please introduce yourself to the audience and we'll get this thing going.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Joanne Saunders, as she said, and I'm assuming because of the experiences that I have and the way I spoke on certain things, it landed me here. But I'm just the average Joe trying to still make things happy and peaceful in my life. So, so that's me.
All right, it's good to have you, and we're gonna try to give you room to express yourself as much as possible. This is an adult platform, so you're free to speak as openly as you want. Okay? All right. So, one of the questions that came to mind when we did the pre-interview was when you said that you had been looking, right? Or something like that. Am I saying that right? You had been looking, but you wasn't able to quite find what you wanted in a partner. Am I saying that right?
Kind of. What I was looking for, I always ended up with the wrong kind of partner. You know, I was looking for love in the wrong places.
All right. So, okay, now we cleared that up. So my question then is, when you realized you were looking for the wrong kind of partner, were you in your younger years, like early 20s, or was this in your later years, like in your 30s?
It was both, to be honest with you. It started from, trying to fill a void from when I was younger. My mom being of searching, trying to escape her reality in a bottle. So I had my grandma, but your mother's love is something that you need. So you're always looking, well, I was always looking for that void to be filled, someone to love me, to show me love. And I didn't know how to love me. So a lot of times when I thought what I wanted, it really ended up not being that, because I was so busy loving everyone else and doing for them and showing them what love is about, but I didn't know what I needed for me. So in that aspect right there, I always ended up being left out, being left with nothing of consistency to hold on to. So I was the one that was always on the sidelines watching everybody else be happy.
And so you're saying you became aware that this was happening in your early 20s?
I realized that I was missing something.
Okay.
And I just didn't know what. And as I got older, I realized, I started putting my demands, and not demands, but I realized what I needed, but I didn't know how to go about it just yet.
Wow. Well, what I find interesting is that unlike most 20-year-olds, you were aware that something wasn't right.
Right.
You understand? Because most 20-year-olds, I mean, let's face it, most 20-year-olds, they're carefree. They're just out there living their young, feeling like they're invincible lifestyle. But you were different. You knew something wasn't right, and you were trying to figure it out at a young age.
right,
So
because
go
I
ahead.
was always one of those that I basically staged myself. I was one of those that, out of the gang that we had, not a gang, but the crew that we had, the
Hmm.
girls that, I used to hang out with, my best friend of 50 plus years, she just got married 2 weeks ago. So for the first time. So, I was always the one that was always reading and well, being a clown too, but I was always the one reading and stuff. And I knew when I read a lot of stuff and watching everybody else have these long lasting relationships or these boyfriends or, girlfriends and stuff. And I'm looking, I'm like, how come I'm not fitting in there? What's going wrong? Something's wrong. So,
Mm.
and this is from being in high school, watching them have their boyfriends, and I'm like, I'm just grabbing on to what they're having, but not really knowing what I'm supposed to have for me. I was grabbing on what they needed for them.
Hmm.
So in
So,
essence, you were looking at other people's relationships and saying, this is what you wanted or what you thought you wanted. And
mhm.
then once you got those relationships, you were doing what you thought love meant and showing that love to that person, not really understanding what they maybe felt love meant.
It wasn't what I wanted, it was what I thought I was supposed
Mm.
to have. And
Do you,
and what I wanted was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I wanted, what I thought I was supposed to want was their happiness.
They're
I
very
didn't realize what I really wanted was just the comfort of knowing that someone loved me. That I
Mhm.
was going to have that companion, I was going to have that friend, that quote unquote perfect guy for me. It might not have been perfect for anyone else, but for
Right,
me. And
right.
I didn't know what me wanted yet because I didn't know how to love me.
I was
I
going to
knew how to
ask you,
love people.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
I said I knew how to love other people, but I didn't know how to love me.
Mm. So that brings to mind a question about the things you were reading, because you just mentioned that you were doing a lot of reading. Do you
Hmm.
think at some point while you were educating yourself, let's say, because of all the reading,
Hmm.
you established some standards for yourself as far as how you wanted to be in a relationship?
Right.
Do
I
you
mean,
think that that happened and that those standards probably interfere with you uh, allowing someone to come into your life?
I was reading, and that right there, what it did was to show me that there was something other than what I was seeing.
Mm, right, right.
And it also, I mean, even in my favorite book when I was 17 years old was How to Be a Sensuous Woman. And
Mm.
I read that and I was like, oh, really? All this, from seeing what everybody else was doing, because I mean, let's face it, I grew up as a teenager in the 70s, so there was a lot of experimenting going on, but we just they were doing things that I knew that there had to be something better than what they were just doing. And I found myself like, I acted like I was doing a lot of things too. I was perpetrating. I'm not even gonna lie about it. I acted like, I was like, yeah, oh yeah, I did.
Talking the talk. You were talking the talk, but then still hadn't walked the walk yet, huh?
Yeah, but even though my mom was in her zone, I knew if I came home pregnant, I was not gonna live. Mm-mm.
Hmm.
So I had the fears of my mom instilled in me, and then that was before I even let God in my life. We always say we found God, but God's never lost. We're the ones that are lost. So when I finally allowed Him in my life, I realized, whoa, there was a whole lot of stuff I shouldn't have done. So it's like, but with all that being said, when I was reading those books and I seen the happy relationships, the bad relationships, the crazy relationships. I mean, I was reading Donald Goines, and I was reading, I was reading romance books. I was reading a whole lot, and also writing. So I just knew that there was something in addition to what I was witnessing in reality.
You know, I don't know if you've heard this saying before, that we become what we think about. Have you heard that saying before, or something similar to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have. I
Okay.
have
And
what I grew up with is what you keep focus on is what you actually become.
right,
That,
right, right.
my
Okay,
grandma.
so I'm mentioning that because I'm thinking, because I used to be really heavily into the urban novels, Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim, and oh man, it was on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember her name. But anyway, so that when I was reading those books, it created a fantasy for me that I now know it's a fantasy as an adult, but then I thought that was life. That's how it was supposed to be. So do you think that happened with you, where you were reading these things and you were creating your reality? You were becoming what you were reading.
No, no. Actually, I think what my reality was and what happened to me is that being raised up in New York, I seen a lot of people having children out of wedlock. I seen a lot of people having, okay, you got to have a man in your house. I seen a lot of, no matter what they're doing, whether it's drugs out there, whatever, however they're doing, this is how you were supposed to have. You're supposed to be in the house, have kids, by this guy. And if that one didn't work out, you have kids by the next guy that comes along. So I'm watching a lot of this in the projects, New York City projects. I mean, we walk down the street, everybody got 2 or 3 kids walking down the street, I was one of the, as they call the late bloomers. I had my first when I was 21. That was considered late. Everybody else was starting at 16 years old. And
Yeah.
I had her because I didn't want to be alone anymore. So I knew if I had a baby that I would have love returned. So I had my first child, because I was looking for love and I wanted to be loved. I was trying to fill that void. So my reality came from watching everybody else have the happiness that they showed on the outside, but I forgot there's those doors that you're not looking behind too.
Right. And at some point, did you, well, when you decided to have your daughter, was that a moment in your life when you decided to open one of those doors and see what it was like on the other side?
I had her with a guy that I wasn't even dating. It just happened, and it was like, okay, it happened. I'm gonna go through with this because this is what I wanted right now. Was the love. It wasn't so much I needed to have a baby, but this is what happened and came along at the time that I was like, I needed love. So a baby coming in my life was like, oh, I'm gonna have love. Wow, that'll be unconditional love, until they grow up and then they, let me stop. But because she's 40 now, so
Off doing her own thing, living her life, yeah. But until then, it's unconditional love.
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So I did get married though. I did get married, and I got married for the wrong reasons. I didn't want to live where I already had 2 children out of wedlock, and I didn't want to live with a guy and not be married to him in my grandmother's eyes. It was like I had to do something right. So if I'm going to live with a guy, he has to be my husband. That's when I started saying I needed to change the way that I'm doing things. Now, had I did it the correct way and waited for the love to come in, maybe I wouldn't be divorced now. But I had to grow to love him, which I did, eventually I did, but drugs came in and he went out.
Wow.
And I take partial responsibility for that too. I stand up and say, if I was a better wife to say, okay, let's face this, let's get you some help, instead of cutting him down with a 2-edged sword, that this right here, cutting him down and taking his manhood away, you know, it's like I had to show everybody I was tough with this guy, and everybody's like, you're crazy. He did a lot to you. See, again, turning my love to somebody to love them instead of loving what I needed in my life. So that was another time when I didn't love me more than I loved the not the situation, but the person to help that person.
You said something about hold on, let me get this question. I'm trying to word the question. You were not necessarily looking to get married, but you decided to get married and went through with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
After you got married, was there a moment when you felt I made a mistake?
The day before I got married.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
The day immediately before your wedding.
I got married. Yeah. I went down to the courts, but I laid there and we were laying there just talking and stuff. And I said, you know what? I don't want to get married. And he got up that next day and he was like, come on, let's go, you know, because we already had the license. And I was like, okay, you know, all right. But I knew the day before, I was like, I didn't want to get married, but I did, you know, and ended up being married 18 years. But out of those 18 years, honestly speaking, we only stayed together like maybe 6 or 7.
So approximately half was good and half was bad, approximately.
Oh man, half of the 6 or 7, you mean?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because I say out of the 6 or 7, it might have been about 4 good years.
So go ahead.
No.
So when you knew the day before you actually went through with the marriage, you said you knew that you didn't want to get married. And I know you said you were trying to do right by, again, the eyes of someone else. Do you think that had you paid attention to the whatever signs there were, that it would have made a difference to your life overall?
Yes, I do. Ooh, I had up until about maybe 5 years ago, 3 or 4, maybe less than that, I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to say no to people. So it was like once I said I was going to do something, I felt obligated that I had to continue through with it. And not realizing that I was doing more damage to me by not saying no. It's all right to say no. It's all right to be alone, you know, to not be with anybody as long as you love you.
Right.
I had to find that out, and I just realized, you know, one day I was like, you know what? Even with my children, I had to tell them no. I can't do this anymore. I need to have the rest of my life for me. I've raised you. I can't keep stopping and doing this for you. And I had to start telling people that. So now I'm balancing it out. Still at this age, I'm still balancing it out, you know, and not trying to be softy, but I'm not trying to be, you know, what they call a roughneck or anything like that. I'm not trying to be tough or anything like that. That my personality, I demand respect, but I love laughing. So I'd rather have laughter than to sit there, walk around with a mean face all the time. Giving
That's right.
You know, so.
Wow. Yeah. You know, you made a good point, because I think that when we realize we need to start saying no, that changes us. But it's very difficult for us to say no to people we genuinely care about.
Oh yeah.
And especially when it comes to our children, or, you know, a partner that we love, genuinely love. It's hard to say no to them. However, when we get comfortable with saying no, and I really hope everyone who's listening to my voice right now, remember this: when you get comfortable with saying no, it empowers you. It makes you a stronger person.
Mhm.
Did you experience that, Joanne?
Yes, I did. I realized, once I started saying no, I was allowed to start finally getting back on my feet because my credit had gotten messed up. I mean, we moved from house to house and trying to keep a roof over my kids' head and not staying on a job long enough because I'm moving from state to state to try to get them to have a better life. That I ended up doing staffing agencies and working from check to check, and it really pulled me back and messed me up, for things that I really wanted to have for them.
Mm,
So when I finally realized that I could say no and not feel guilty,
right.
I said, you know what, it's all right. So now here I am I have a decent job. I worked my credit back up. I'm looking to purchase a home. I'm doing things now which I wish I could have done, but I can't go over the shoulda, wouldas, couldas.
Right. Right.
So I got to take it from this point on. And even though, my children were like, Ma, you said you didn't want us around anymore. I said, no, I wanted you out my house. Didn't mean that I didn't want you to stop calling or seeing if Mom is all right.
Right.
It's
We
a
want
big
you
difference.
out of the house.
Right. I just want you out the house.
Come visit, come say hey, call.
Right.
It's okay. But get out the house.
It's just hard when, like you said, when you care about somebody, when you love somebody and you tell them no, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
But I had to stop feeling like that.
Right. Right.
So when you first started saying no, because I know it was a struggle for me too, all these people we love and care about, we don't want to hurt their feelings, we don't want to make them feel bad, and then we start feeling guilty and feeling bad. Did you just like flat out no, or was there some other alternative method that you used to be able to do that
Right.
without with the guilt?
I'm one of those people where you push me to the point where I say no, and I'm like, okay, I said no, and that's it. Or if with my children, it was like, I think they kind of thought once they started having kids that mommy was gonna be there to be the grandma, and no.
Right.
No, and they found out because now I go on my little cruises and stuff. I took my granddaughter on the cruise with me, but for the last like 5 years, I've been going on the cruise every year. So it's like,
Right.
and it's I'm up and going. My mother's 80 years old and she still gets up and go. So I'm not gonna let
Yes,
grass
I love
grow
it.
under my feet,
I love it. Well, let me say this to the audience because I wasn't the person that was able to just say no. I can now, like with no
Right.
hesitation, like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to. Nope, not feeling it. I'm good,
Mhm.
But before, one of the methods that I used was I always offered the alternative, so it was, no, I can't do this, but I can do this, or no, I can't do this right now, but maybe this day or that time. Because I was always seen as a, can you take me here? Can you do this? Can I borrow this? Can I borrow that type person? So everybody came to me for that, wanted me to give up my precious time and for them. And I didn't realize how much I was weighing myself down. And then I actually left the state. I actually left the state for 6 months. And it wasn't until I came back to visit when people were looking at me and the first thing they would say was, you look so stress-free. And it dawned on me that, well, that's because I'm not giving my time and energy to everybody else and losing out on giving my own time and energy to myself.
That's right.
Yeah. Also on that right there, I learned from my ex-husband the compromises. That was something that I realized I couldn't do because he was always, okay, we do this, we're turning, if we do this, no, if you do this, then I'm gonna, we'll do that. And after a while, it got played out because I was always left with the short end of the stick. So compromises, nah, I can't do that anymore. And people, there's sometimes I should be able to, but I won't.
Not all compromises are good.
Right, right. Not all
Right.
compromises are good.
And some people are manipulators. So like you said, you can end up with the short end of the stick and not realize it because you just have that big heart and you don't realize it until after the fact and later on down the line. So that is something that, you know, we all need to look and pay attention to when we're making those compromises.
Right. And even to this day, we're friends. You know, he's remarried and there's some concerns that I had for him. You know, are you all right? You know, he was going through something. I'm still reaching out to help, you know, but he also in turn, he's like, are you all right? You know, we're friends. So I don't have any problem with that. And I couldn't carry around that hurt anymore. It was, I mean, I got a head full of gray hair behind all of that stress holding me around, you know, and once I started saying love, that's when I realized that it was all right to love me. That's when I realized that, and I had wrote down some notes here, but one of the things that I realized when I wrote down is that I was looking for love in the wrong places and even bad love. Not all love is good.
Can you just for our audience, can you elaborate on what do you mean by that? What do you mean by bad love?
When you think someone is actually loving you, but what they're doing is just satisfying your void to get everything that they want from you.
Right.
They're really not returning love. They're just return. Oh, okay, this is all she wanted. You know, so I'll just do that, shut her mouth up, but I know I'm gonna get this from her if I do that. So it was not for love that they was doing it. It was for self-love they were doing it.
Right, right.
And I wasn't getting the correct love for me.
Right.
So over the years, you discovered that was happening. You learned that was happening, and at some point you started saying no. So after you started saying no, did you notice a difference in the type of men you were attracting? How was that for you? Was it a moment of, you know, where you were excited, like, wow, I never met a guy like you before, or what was that like?
It took a long time for me to realize that, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I felt that I wasn't worthy to be with some certain kind of man.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, I don't have the college education. I don't have, you know, a lot of stuff, but I'm smart without the degree. I think I'm smart. And lately I've been hearing a lot of people tell, you know, how far did you go in college? And I'm like, I just, you know, did a few years in college. I never finished my degree, you know, and I didn't think I was worthy. So I sat back a lot. Like right now I'm single. I've been single basically for the last 20 something years, you know, and I may have dated, but it only lasted for a few months because I don't have tolerance for, I see the flags going up. I'm like, I don't have time for it. And maybe I'm just short with that now, you know. So
it sounds like
you know what you want.
Right. I was just
it's that simple. You know what you want.
Right.
And you know what you're not gonna tolerate, and you just don't have time for it, right?
Exactly.
Like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say it sounds like what you were aware of when you were younger, you're now practicing it.
You're paying more attention.
Yeah, right.
To
You're not just paying attention to it, but you're paying attention to it, and you're living your life based on it.
Right. And don't get me wrong, those 20 something years since I've been divorced, don't get me wrong, is, you know, well, since I've been out of my marriage, it mainly was because I didn't put myself out there in a dateable circumstance because I was raising children, and you can't just bring anybody around all the time, you know, especially if you bring the wrong person around. So I kind of like shied away from it for a long time, you know, and if I did date, my children didn't know about it because they wasn't really coming to my house like that. So, you know, I was surface, you know, what you say, how do you put that when you're on the top of the water? You're like, I'm not diving deep. but yeah, I just
water. Yeah.
Yeah, treading water, right. and and you know, when you get a certain age, after you go through certain point in life with women with menopause and stuff, you know, you're not the Coke bottle that you used to be. You end up being the 2-liter or the 3-liter, you know, so you kind of like pull back because you're like, oh, I'm too big. They don't, you know, so you don't think that you're worthy to be with guys like that, or, you know, that. And so today's society, you got, I was just saying this in a Zoom, the men in my age group want women that are, you know, shapely and stuff. And I understand everybody has their preference, but they're not what they used to be when we were younger.
That's right.
You know, I mean, so you have these demands that, you know, oh no, you know, I want to get with a woman's like that. Well, what you offering? Because I see all of this spare tire going around too.
Wonderful,
you know?
double standards that people have is ridiculous.
Yes.
For both men and women.
Yes.
It's bad.
It is.
It is.
Because it's so bad that it stops us from meeting someone who may be good for us.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. Because I see, you know, even with looking on TV and stuff like that, you see society, it will accept a bigger man before they'll accept a bigger woman.
That's true.
That is true.
That's true. They put out this image of beauty, and you have men who will settle for nothing less than having that image.
Yeah.
So it's not real. It's a fabricated image, but there are men who will not settle for a woman who does not have that, like you said, that Coke bottle
shape.
Shape. Right. When there's nothing wrong with the 2-liter.
Look, you got us thick thickums that, you know, we're thick for a reason. We know how to cook. No, let's
Good point.
Yeah. So Joanne, when you realized that your body was changing and you didn't have that figure that a lot of men want, did that interfere with your self-confidence in any way, or has your confidence always been at a high level? Sorry for that.
Right. No, it interfered big time. I had to understand before I looked up, all the extra was there, and I was like, where did this come from?
Like
because I was so busy taking care of everybody else, right? I was so busy taking care of everybody else. I was like, oh man, is this a milk carton or what? What am I looking at here? You know, it's like, So then I shied away. I stayed in the backgrounds. You know, we get into even with church, you know, I sit back and there'll be people in there. I have a big personality, but for the most part, I'm really an introvert, and people don't realize that, because if it's not concerning something that, like being a choir director or something like that, I kind of sit back, you know, and I'll observe a lot of people, and I observe things, and I don't know if that's coming from where I was raised up at. You always keep your surroundings in sight, but I always stay back, and I don't put myself as, okay, she's friendly to approach. I didn't put myself in an approachable position. I didn't. I kind of clung to that, you know, don't come near me. Right. And it was because of the way I was built, you know. Now, if they don't like it, go on, honey. I don't care. Right. I got a comforter to keep me warm. So.
Right. Go on and get your little 2-piece. I got a full meal over here. So unless you're hungry, just stay away. But listen, wow. That introvert thing that you mentioned, was there a moment when you realized that you were an introvert and you said, this is affecting my social life?
Yeah. Yes. Somebody walked up to me
Hmm.
at a picnic and they said, you're really a person that stays to themselves, huh? And once he said that, I then realized, wow, I didn't think I was, but I realized when I started listening to what he was saying, he was pointing out things that he noticed about me. And I was like, okay. And he was telling the truth. You know, he said, I see that you'll sit up there and laugh and everything. He said, but you end up you pulling yourself away from all of that, and you'll go sit by yourself. You know, and I do, and I was comfortable with that, and I realized that that had a lot to do with the way people perceived me and who I was. And I started realizing, well, you know what? How are you expecting anyone to say, you know, oh man, she's the kind of person I want to be with, if you're not smiling, or you know, if you're not involved with conversations? People can't hear the type of person that you are. They're just guessing right now. If you don't open this, can't nobody hear.
Right. Right. They can't hear what's really in your heart.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And even with, you know, the first lady of my church, when she first met me, she said, nobody's that happy.
No.
And I laughed, and she said, no, that's fake. But then she realized, we're real close to this day, she realized my laughter was pure. Now my tears are pure too, but they don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
They see the laughter, but, you know, and she realized that. And after she got to know me, she was like, wow, I thought, you know, they think completely different of me.
What were you about to say?
Well, I was going to go back a little bit to when we were talking about the signs, because I think that's something that a lot of, not just women, but men too, you know, we tend to overlook the fact that men pull themselves into relationships that they know they shouldn't be in, or they felt that there's something wrong. So I'm curious to know, like, what were some of those signs that you were seeing that were telling you that you knew this relationship wasn't right for you, or it wasn't the time for you?
I think like this, anytime you start feeling uncomfortable with having to respond, or when you see somebody's phone number come up, you're like, I really don't want to talk to them right now, because they put you in a position where you're starting not to like them. Anytime that you rather be by yourself than to be with that person you thought you were supposed to be with, it's an inner feeling. They don't realize there's little things, and it's not just one thing, it's a bunch of little things compressed, and it finally starts pushing you back. It's no longer, you know, it's like a wave that comes along. It's like, okay, I'm gonna push you back this time, and I'm gonna bring you back in, then I'm gonna push you back this time. And you tired of that being that shore of the waves just come rushing up on, so you just finally walk away from it. You know, you pull yourself back completely from it. I'm an analogy person. I like compare, you know, giving you an example.
That's fine. That's fine. I was just going to comment and say, unfortunately, it takes some people a long time before they realize they're the shore, and the waves are just constantly coming back around, coming back around. Takes some people a long time. Sometimes they never realize it, but it does take some people a long time to realize, and they just don't want to walk away. They keep thinking, well, there's a reason these waves keep coming back, and I need to figure out what's the reason. Well, maybe you just need to walk away, and then the waves will stop coming.
Well, see, and when you said there's a reason for why it keeps coming back, I as a woman, I always say, okay, that's hope. But we hope that they're coming back the right way.
Right.
We
Yeah.
hope that we're going to get it
Mm-hmm.
right this time. We hope, and then you realize, oh, it's not going to work, and you got to get tired of being tired.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. But I think that that's a false hope that people hold on to
Yeah,
because they're expecting, and we all know if you can't continue to have the same actions but expect different results.
Right.
But they're
right.
expecting a different result, but they're not doing anything to change themselves in any way. So they
Hmm.
continue to sit there and let the waves keep coming with that false hope that, hey, maybe
Right.
the next wave is going to be different. No,
Hmm.
it's not going to be different because you
Same.
haven't done anything to make your life different, make yourself different.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I had to start, taking what I knew was supposed to be there, and I had
Mhm.
to start, learning how to pull little things that would build that in.
Right.
So, it was like, okay, saying no here, okay, not compromising here, okay, giving that part away, decluttering. And I had to
Mhm.
learn how to start pulling little things in, to start building me again, start building my heart.
Right on. So it sounds like um you saw the ideal life for yourself. You
Hmm.
saw you had an image of
Hmm.
what you wanted it to be, right? So would you say that that was you realizing there's something better out there for me? Was it a moment like that when you saw the other side and you said, "Yep, that's what I
Yeah.
want."
Oh, no, I never looked at something else. I always, because I've always been, that's somebody else's blessing. I don't know if that's going to work for me. Like I said, I had to build me to know what I wanted. There wasn't, I look at marriages and stuff, and I looked at people being together, but I also hear some things too that, or witness some things like, I don't want that. I'd rather love me and be by myself than to be in something that's going to tear me down
Well,
and
that's what I
and
meant.
stress.
I'm sorry. Well, that's what
Oh,
I
okay.
meant. Was it you saw a version of yourself,
Hmm.
futuristic or uh, in the near present, right?
Hmm.
You saw a version of yourself, and you said, "That's the life I want to live." Did you have a moment like that where you I guess you had a moment of
To be
clarity?
honest with you, I'm still guessing. I'm still learning along the way. There's nothing concrete because no one's promised their life that they see themselves in it. That's the one thing I always say to myself. It's a joke that God says, you want to see God laugh, tell him what you want or going to do. It's like he laughs because it's his direction. But also you have to understand that, it's all right to just love you. And if it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't, that's okay too.
Your happiness is
So
in loving you.
yeah,
So how did
yeah.
you go about really building yourself, and I know you say, you're still going through things, nothing is concrete, but how did you really go about starting that process of building yourself back so that you can be ready for if another relationship comes along and have this more confidence than what you had before?
When I became homeless,
Mm.
when I became homeless of putting everything else before me, and I realized I had to rebuild. And in order for me to rebuild, I had to want something. I had to want to love me. I had to want that. And what was I gonna do? Be somebody on the streets? No. So
Mhm.
it took me about a year to really understand, not to understand, but to know, get focused, and this is what you're going to do. This is what you need to do. Don't worry about anybody else. You
Mhm.
can't worry about anybody or help anyone if you don't have anything.
That's right. That's right.
So I was, and they say you're homeless when you don't have anything in your name. So I was homeless for a minute, to where when I had lost everything, it was like, you know, because I was working for the travel agency and 9/11 happened.
Wow.
And I had just bought a home and they were predatory lenders, and I got all caught up being from New York, coming down here. Oh, we can buy a house, it's cheap, you know. And I went through a whole lot with, you know, learning and nobody helping or telling me, okay, this is what you have to do. It was just like, you go out there and do it for yourself. So I realized, okay, they for them, I can't do this. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh my God, I had to learn the hard way, you know, but I knew that I had to keep doing what I had to do to keep my family together. I didn't want to leave, you know, my oldest one, she was graduating, she was going on about her way. And then I still had 2 at home. And then my son went into the military and I still had my youngest one. So her and I went through the most of bouncing around, you know, okay, we're going to move here. We lived there for a little while. Something happens. We move someplace else. And then I finally started like turning it around, you know, and wanting more for myself. And that's when I realized you got to love you. You really do. You know, no matter how much you say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, until you start, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah,
Until
and
you put action behind those words, nothing's
Yeah.
going to change.
yeah, and then you know, you were talking about being homeless. The first thing in my mind, I know we don't give of ourselves, or we shouldn't give of ourselves to expect things in return. But the real question is, when that really happened to you, how many of those people that we give so much to, and we give so much of our time, our energy, our attention, our finances, you know, how many of them were there when the tables turned and now you're the one needing that help?
Oh, well, I found out real quick. I kind of knew it already that nobody was really going to be there. You know, for my friend, our mutual friend, she put me up for a few months. But by that time, my children were, you know, they were in their own places and stuff. And she put me up for a few months, and then I ended up staying with my children, but that wasn't working out because it was like I felt like I was interrupting their life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want them to feel like, oh, because I had you live with me all those years, once you became an adult, you need to put me up too. No, I didn't want them to feel like that, you know, and I didn't want them to feel like I'm gonna interfere with their life as a mother. Oh, you shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. You know, I voiced my opinion, but I didn't want them to say, this is your show right here, you know, and I got tired of being like that. So I remember calling a family member, you know, can I just come and sleep on your floor? And they told me no. I said, okay. And I'm talking about a sibling.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay. And for this sibling, I had put my life on hold plenty of times. You know, I gave up, I was being hired as a manager for CNN call center. And instead of doing that, I turned it down to help them start a business.
Mm.
So that was a big mistake. I could have been way ahead in life, but you know what? I can't say it was a mistake. What it was a learning experience that I had to grow from.
Right.
You know, one thing that I really admire about you is that you've been on this journey of self-discovery, but you've never given up. I really admire that about you. You've never given up. Even when you were young and you knew something wasn't right, you knew that there's just something out of place in my life. You kept going, you continued moving forward. And that right there is something that a lot of people just can't do. They don't know how to just keep moving forward, just continue taking those steps. They don't know how to do it, and they end up, you know, just becoming a victim of life instead of actually experiencing life. And that's something you should really be proud of, because a lot of people can't do what you're doing.
Well, the one thing that I've always said is my yesterday tears water my tomorrow ministries, because whatever I've gone through, maybe I can say to somebody else and help them avoid it. So that's the ministries that my tears are watering, you know. So I'm like, okay, you know, I shed enough tears back then. So it's like, I got enough to water a whole field out here, you know, a whole farming field. So, so it's, you know, I can't give up my laughter because somebody else hurt me. I can't do that because then I'm defeated.
Right. Yes. Yep. You would be defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, will you tell our audience, how did you learn to, I'm trying not to repeat the question we already asked. When you mentioned the part where your sibling wouldn't let you come sleep on their floor,
Mm-hmm.
and other instances similar to that, where people told you no, how did you find the strength to keep moving?
I didn't dwell
Was
in
it a
it.
mantra you had? Was it I don't know, a lucky charm or something that you had? What was it that
I
kept you
didn't
moving?
dwell in it. I didn't dwell in the no. I'm not going to force them. I can't force them to say yes. So my next thing was to move on and find a solution, or, you know, because I mean, there was a time in my marriage to where my husband had stole all my money and everything. Oh, I hate putting this out there. And my brother came by and gave me $5 to feed 3 children for a whole week. I realized right then and there that there's always some kind of hope, because I run around the corner. I got, they were selling chicken 19 cents a pound. You get 10 pounds for $1.90. If you get 10 pounds, you get 10 pounds free.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. And you
Wow.
had $5.
Look, $5 with a bag of potatoes and some flour for either biscuits, pancakes, everything. I
Right.
fed my children for a whole week on $5.
$5.
Wow.
See
So I
that
knew
right
that
there?
there's always going to be some kind of hope.
Wow.
You just have to know how to use it.
Mm-hmm. How to let that hope be fuel
Mm-hmm.
for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome. So then,
Wow.
the love, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the love that you've been looking for was self-love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that though.
Yes.
I
Yes.
didn't know
That's
that. I
what it was.
thought, yeah, I thought I had to love everybody else in order for them to love me. But if I don't know how to love myself, how can I know what I'm looking for or who to look for? You know, and I've gotten to the point where I don't look anymore. If it happens, it happens. Like I said before, you know, if it comes up on me, I'll recognize it. But whoever does come into my life, I will let them know. Just be patient, because there's some
Mhm.
things I'm still learning. I'm adjusting to knowing how to let somebody help me.
Mhm. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't know how to let someone help them.
Mm-hmm.
So are you now like actively dating at this time?
I don't know if you want to call it that. COVID put it
You're open to it though if you're not actively dating.
right.
So what is that experience like now?
Oh, it's terrible.
Why would you say it's terrible? What's the terrible
Because at
part?
this age, it's like, you know, and I keep saying this age like I'm over the hill, but I'm really not. It's just that I find the men, the selections really have gotten down to a whole small little compact, and there's not many.
You're not the first woman to say
No,
that,
you're
not the first
not.
woman to tell us that.
Oh my goodness, I have, and the conversation, it's like, you talk like that. I don't want to talk to somebody that thinks they're still 20 years old, you know.
Mm.
I don't want to have, I hate, I don't want to sound bad or anything, but I'm not dating to take care of anyone either. And I mean, medically, I don't want to have to push anybody in a wheelchair or, you know, it's like,
Well, I'm going to say this about the conversation part because this is just in season 2 of this podcast, men, I'm talking to the men, because until we can get some men on here to defend themselves, it is clear, it is evident that the men are lacking the conversation needed for these women.
Yes, yes.
That is a known trend just in season 2 of the Love Marriage Fantasy podcast. If we are wrong, it is your time as a man to get on here and say we're wrong, because they're telling what their challenges are. The women are putting it out there and they're saying conversation, mental stimulation, what's the problem? Like, so I don't know what else to say, because right now it's a trend. You're not the only person that said that in this season.
Mm-hmm.
You're not.
I can say this much right here. The one thing that really drives me crazy is when they start talking about sex. That's all they want to talk about. What they can do. Like, okay, that's inevitable. To after a while, we get to that point. If we get to that point, okay, you can tell me and show me then, but the whole conversation is, if you came home, I would do. No, I don't want hell with that. Tell me what you would do if you was out in the street and what kind, you take me on a picnic or something just because, or something like that. I want to know what you plan on doing from 5 years from now. I mean, and at my age, you might want to say 2 years from now, but I want to hear something different. I don't want to hear, look, honey, I can tell you some stuff about, in the bedroom. I could tell you a whole lot. But then after that, what else is there?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the substance?
You're not the only one saying it. I'm just saying, man, we're putting a call out for you to come on this podcast. I don't know how else to say it. We're putting it out there.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not speaking in defense of the men, but you women out there should try to remember this. There's a lot of men who grew up without a good example of a male in their household. So they're just emulating what they see on TV or what they've seen in a movie or what they've heard in a song. Okay, they don't really know. They don't know the importance of having value as a man.
Hopefully we've added something to that. And hopefully they're listening to the podcast and they now understand what the women are looking for.
Substance.
We need a real conversation. Can we get a real conversation? A real conversation.
Okay, so let me kind of put you on the spot. I'm gonna put you in the spotlight. All right. So let's say this guy, he's kind of suave. He got his clothes, his appearance is good and everything, right? Well groomed. He approaches you. You see, what you say?
Smell good.
Smell good. Okay.
Yep,
smell good. Right.
It's like weed, and weed is a cologne smell for some reason.
Oh gosh, yes. You can smell it from like blocks away. It's like, ooh, somebody has had some strong stuff.
Mm-hmm. and it's foolish to me. And I'm gonna get back to what I was gonna ask you, but it's foolish to me because we know it's not completely legal. And so by you walking around in public smelling like you just bathed in weed, you're setting yourself up for a possible search by the police.
Yep.
You're setting yourself up, to have an encounter with the law. So I just wanted to put that out there. Just
be smart.
Yeah, just be smart about what you're doing, right?
Right.
Okay, so this guy, he approaches you, right? Smelling good, dressed nice. Grown well, shoes look good, because I know some women pay attention to a man's shoes. Shoes look good. Everything, he looks like the perfect package. And he approaches you, he introduces himself, but he asks you, so what does a woman like you want in a man? What would you say?
Are you ready for the truth?
That's what you would say? Wow.
That's good.
Are you ready for the truth?
That's good.
Ladies, I think that is a good idea I think that is an excellent idea. Ask a man, are you ready for the truth?
That is one of the best responses.
Yes, that is
Oh,
something,
wow.
because by asking that question, it's going to cause him to realize at that moment he's not dealing with an average woman.
Right.
Are you ready for the truth?
Wow.
Okay, so now you know we got to go to the other part of that. So what is the truth? What's the truth?
Everybody is different. And my truth is that I want somebody that I can have as a best friend, somebody that's into us.
Right.
Focus point, not you, not me, but us. If they focus on us, they consider the both of us in every situation or most situations, you know. So that's what I want. I want somebody that's going to put thought and concern into us.
Yeah, I like that, because a lot of people, they don't understand the us concept when it comes to being in a relationship. It's always I or me. Yeah.
Very common.
And both of them are saying it. Both of them are saying me, and it's like, okay, if you singing the me's over here, and the me's over here, somewhere in there, it's not coming together.
Yeah, that us and that we, at some point, it needs to come into this relationship, because if it doesn't, there's no need of us being together.
I think that's something that even relationships that are strong right now need to pay attention to, because sometimes, you know, even being in a relationship, you can find yourself in that zone, you know, where you're just thinking about you, and it may not be intentional, you know, or it could be intentional, because there are going to be things that you still want to think about for yourself
as an individual,
but you don't want it to overpower what is important to the relationship as a whole. And I think some of the relationships that are healthy and strong, maybe that could be a potential reason that some of them fail, because they start thinking so much about themselves and forget that there's an us as they're going along that journey.
But you also have to realize that people change along the journey. So you always have to come back to the drawing board and talk about what you're going through. Like when a woman is married from the time she's in her 20s or 30s, and then she's married and starts going through menopause, she needs to sit down and say, it's not just the hot flashes. It's also a temperament adjustment. It's also trying to understand what she's going through herself. So I'm trying to figure this out too. So just be there and understand, okay, we going through it together. I understand you going through it with me, because I might be taking it out on you or whatever, but you always got to come back to the drawing board, because you might not be the same person you was when you first fell in love.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
Everyone changes, things change, everything changes all the time. So there's no way we should continue to expect the person that we met when we were in our 20s to be the same person that they are, or that we think they are in their 50s. That's just not realistic. Everyone's going to change. I did want to go ahead.
I was going to say, one of my favorite songs, and if you get a chance, because I know I'm older than you guys, but if you get a chance, listen to Sweeter Than Yesterday by the Escorts. I'll be sweeter than yesterday, or something like that. But that's one of my favorite songs, because the man is telling him, you might not, I'm letting you know, I see how much you love me, and I promise today I'm going to be sweeter than I was yesterday. So that means that it takes an effort, and that's one of my favorite songs by the Escorts. It's from the 70s, and that's when we knew how to tell each other we were in love.
Yes, the music was, wow.
Yeah,
the music was much better.
I'm not from that time, but the music was better. I'm just saying, I can't even listen to the music right now. It's really bad. Like, I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, what are they saying?
Yeah.
What is this? And then they're only like, 2-minute songs versus some of the older songs are like 6, 7,
11 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you actually get some real music.
Right, they had a whole life story in there.
They
Right,
have
the
a
whole
whole
story.
story. They have played it all out. Now you get 2, 3.5 minutes, you're done, and on to the next one. Don't know what
Right,
they said.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. It really takes away from you being able to relate to the artist, because they cut the story short.
They
They
do.
give you a real short version of it, throw in a little instrumental, and then that's it. They're done.
Mhm.
But that's just a sign of things changing. And so
Mhm.
you know, we have to be able to adjust to change. One thing I wanted to ask you, and again, and I say this in almost every episode, but you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, because it's going to be somewhat of a sexual question. All right. So if you don't want to answer, just say I'd rather not answer.
Okay, if you don't want the truth, don't ask.
Exactly. I like that philosophy. I like that. Okay, so we gotta have you back on here. We gotta have you, 'cause I really, your honesty is refreshing. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So my question is, when you have those moments where you're having those sexual urges,
Mhm.
do you talk yourself out of pursuing just a casual encounter? And if you do, why do you talk yourself out of it?
I have and I haven't. I've talked myself out of it because I don't want just, I want more. So
Mhm.
why do I tease myself? That's like giving me one little French fry and I like how they taste and I want the rest of it. You know, so,
Right.
and that's why, because it's like, okay, I can't just, if this one doesn't work out or that one doesn't work out, that's tiresome. You know, you're like, oh, I'm not putting anybody, I'm not getting in anyone else's bed or something like that. But not everybody works out well. You end up with, again, on the short end of the stick, and it makes you mad because now you're more hungry than you were before. So
Right.
you're like, oh. So I call up my pure romance representative.
Right. Right. And that I get what you're saying, because you know, as men get up in age, they tend to think that just because their brain is telling them that they can do these things, they forget that their body isn't reacting to what the brain is saying. So yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. So you choose to take the safe route by saying, okay, I'd rather say no instead of just saying yes to every urge that I get.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Like I said, I got my partners on the side and the dresser drawer, so you know, I've learned to appreciate that in better ways, and learned how to I've learned how to just not just because, you know, it's like, okay,
Mhm.
that urge come on, it gets strong. I think I need to do something about it, you know, and I'm a healthy red-blooded woman, so you know, it's things haven't died down. Thank God, but things haven't died down, because they say after menopause, you know, it's like some go this way and some go that way, and I'm glad I'm the one that's going the right way. No, let me stop.
But I mean, it's good that you're not ignoring the urges, because, you know, even releasing all of that is healthy for you and the body and the mind in general.
Right.
You know, holding that in is not good.
No,
You know,
absolutely.
they say if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Right.
That's right. So,
So
So
yeah, I understand that, you know.
so it's one thing that I do want to point out to our audience is something that Joanne has learned to do, and that's to um, I don't want to use the word therapy or therapist. You have learned to counsel yourself. Would that be a great way to put it?
Mhm.
Right. So in learning that, she's practicing obtaining knowledge of self. And if you've never heard the phrase "know thyself," it's a term that's used in every spiritual doctrine. It's present in one way or another. It's present in every spiritual doctrine where they teach the most important thing that a human can do is know thyself. Know who you are, because in doing that, you gain your power. You discover what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and how you should live your life based on those things. And I think what you've done, Joanne, is you've learned how to do that. You've learned how to know yourself. Would you agree with that?
Yes, yes. I had a lot of time, and instead of focusing on other things, I focused on, if I read books, you know, I focused on how I could apply it in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of times I may have made the wrong decisions, but for the most part, it's given me a healthy disposition of myself, you know.
Mm-hmm. That is
I think it's healthy.
yeah, it has.
Yeah.
Just talking to you, I can see it has. Yeah.
Thank
Because
you.
like I said, you're comfortable with expressing your honesty. And a lot of people can't do that. I know I've gone down that path of self-honesty. Many people can't do it. Many people can't go one day without telling a lie, without telling some sort of lie, whether it's about themselves or about someone else or an experience they're having. Many people, I'm going to say most people, can't go one day without exaggerating the truth or telling a white lie or something like that.
Right, but I learned this right here. The one thing, first of all, what can a person do? You tell them the truth and they don't like it. What can they do? Walk away from you? Okay, fine.
Right.
You know, they're not going to whoop you. I mean, they're not going to beat you and send you to bed with no dinner. I mean, what's the most that they can do? And
Right.
you had to so this way now, when people tell me no, or they tell me negative things, okay,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Out of your control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Awesome. Right. I appreciate that. Good. Yeah. Look, it was good talking to you. Okay, so we got to start wrapping this up. So, is there one thing that you would like to leave our audience with? One thing that they will remember after they stop listening to this episode? A piece of knowledge that you might want to share with them, maybe a little bit of wisdom that they can stick in their pocket and say, I'm glad I listened to this woman, and I'm glad she was able to share this with me.
The one thing that I can say to everybody out there, no matter what you're doing in life, and no matter how bad it can get, look for the peace, P-E-A-C-E, not the peace that take peace in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look for the peace in it, because if you don't get peace out of it, you're not going to be able to move on.
Yeah.
So learn how to find the peace in whatever the scenario is.
Good. Good.
Right.
I know that sounds weird, but you can always find, like they say, you always find goodness in something. Well, you can always find peace in something. Like if I'm trying to look for a car and people want to take my money, but the piece of it is I don't have to spend my money. I can still get the
car. Right. Okay.
You know, but I just find that, because without peace, I almost lost my life behind stress. So I learned how to not get stressed anymore. And you can't make people do what you want them to do. So don't linger in it.
That's right.
You can't.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate you joining us on here,
Uh-huh.
Miss Joanne. It has been a pleasure.
Yes, it
And
has.
as the mister said, very refreshing because you don't find very many honest people and individuals who have gone through that phase of knowing how to be honest with themselves and not just everyone else. So we
Mhm.
do appreciate that. We appreciate you. We appreciate the information you have given to our audience. I'm sure that someone will take something from this and
Yeah.
it will help them, which is the goal.
Right.
And we definitely look forward to having you back on
Mhm.
another episode in the future. So we'll be reaching out.
Yeah. Or you just let us know if
When
you have
you're
something
ready.
you want to come back and talk about. Just
We're
let us
open,
know.
right? So we do appreciate you. And to all of our listeners, we appreciate you. We thank you. Go subscribe, hit the bell, get the notifications, share the podcast, share the YouTube, share all that information
Mhm.
so that we can help more people. So we
Right.
appreciate all of you, and we will talk to you in another episode.
Y'all have a good night.
Okay, bye.
All right, thank you.